I'm Dianna Anderson, and welcome to episode 9 of How Do I Lead Now? In this episode, we're going to talk about what to say when you don't know what to say. Let's face it, as leaders, there are so many more sensitive, sometimes challenging, sometimes a little awkward kinds of conversations we are needing to engage in these days in order to do the things that need to be done. So whether you are trying to help your employees or your peers or maybe even friends and family to feel more psychologically safe in a world of uncertainty, or whether you're engaging with your colleagues to make difficult decisions for the business, or whether you're addressing some of these bigger questions that we're all being asked to look at, such as systemic racism and how that's being expressed in our organizations and in our world. All of these things and so much more requiring us to have, edgier conversations than I think we're typically used to. And I think it's a tremendous disservice if we don't engage in these conversations, because as leaders, I think it's our job to help people navigate change, and to prepare our organizations, to thrive in the world that we find ourselves in and beyond, and, to be responsible to the bigger questions that are being asked. So what I want to do today in this episode is give you just a few things that you can do to help make these conversations maybe a little bit easier to have. The first one is to set the intention to be of service to whomever you are speaking with and whatever you are speaking about or on behalf of. So if you were talking with a peer, if your intention was to be of service to that person, you're going to listen and respond in a really different way than if you are coming from your own agenda of any description. The other thing about setting the intention of being of service is that it creates a much more welcoming space for everyone. People can feel the intention from which you're coming, and when the intention is to be of service, it tends to help people feel more open and invited into conversation, which is important regardless of what you're talking about. So I hope you'll actually use this practice for many of the conversations that you're in, not just the edgy ones. Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the next one, which is the option that you have to couch more challenging questions to make them a little bit more palatable. And so what I mean by that is you can kind of give a preamble like, this might be a little bit difficult, or this is an odd question, and then ask the question that's going to get to the heart of the issue as quickly as possible. So as a quick little easy example of this, I was meeting somebody professionally online through a Zoom call a couple of weeks ago, and he opened the call by saying, I know this is maybe a slightly odd question, but how's the pandemic been for you? and I laughed when he did that, but then immediately shared with him what was most poignant for me about my experience. And in that way, he learned a lot about me quite quickly. And we were able to have a good conversation. So if it would be of service to ask maybe a question that has a little bit more of an edge to it, consider couching it to give yourself some room to move in case it doesn't land exactly as you intended. The next area I wanted to focus on is your own emotional reaction when you're in these kinds of conversations. I know sometimes people avoid having more challenging conversations because they are concerned about how they're going to respond and the impact that could have. And you know what? Rightfully so. If you have the habit of responding with your emotions, so, adding the frustration to how you react to something, or getting defensive, we all know that can really derail a conversation pretty quickly. On the other hand, I also think that pretending you're not having a reaction or trying to stuff that emotion also does not work well over time, because eventually all those emotions often erupt in a kind of a big, messy, outcome that really can be damaging. So a better practice is to speak to your emotions, which is to speak about what you're feeling without having to kind of add it in real time. So an example might be, that's really an interesting perspective. I find I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable about that. And then speak to what the discomfort is. And this could open the door to someone offering more resources to better understand what they're saying, or at least to have conversation about what the concern is. Sometimes just giving voice to what the concern is, literally, like, I'd like to share that what's concerning me about XYZ is this. Again, it brings the emotion into the conversation in a productive way that allows us to focus on it and, the dynamics around it, instead of, having the kind of emotional ricochet that happens when we start throwing our emotions around. So that's a skill to build, one that takes a little bit of time, but absolutely worth the investment. The last thing I wanted to share with you is the idea of speaking from your heart. And, I think as we are really in some more intensive conversations these days, people are sharing with us things that can be hard to hear, whether it's they're sharing losses that they have experienced. They might have lost a loved one. Maybe they've lost a job. There's so much loss these days that everyone is experiencing. Or also, sometimes people are speaking to what their experience has been, maybe with racism. So if someone is sharing with you, what they have actually experienced, and it might be hard to hear. And the thing to do is don't let your head respond, all right? So, because our heads often want to try to fix things or negate them or, sort of do something to feel more comfortable. And that's often not helpful and can really land the wrong way. A better place to come from is, again, our hearts. And for me, I know when I'm in this situation, I literally will go into my heart and ask, what do I want to say? And my intention is only to create a human-to-human connection. The essence of what I share is to say, I see you, and I have compassion for what you are going through. And whether I say, I'm sorry for what you're experiencing, or just, offer my heartfelt hope that they will experience healing soon. My intention, again, is just a heart-to-heart human connection that says, I see you, I hold you in my heart, and I wish you well. And that, by the way, is probably one of the greatest gifts we as humans have to give to each other. And so my hope is that some of what I'm sharing with you today will help you give that gift more often, because we all need it right now. So your reflection for this week is to consider first, are there some sensitive conversations that maybe you have not been having, or not been having at the depth that they really need to be had? And I'm hoping that you will give thought to some of these things that I've shared with you, and maybe that will help you step more confidently and compassionately into those conversations and actually have them. So that's what I'd love for you to do this week. I hope that you will have a fantastic week, have a good experience with that. And I hope that you will join me next week when I'm going to be talking about how coaching-based leadership and traditional leadership actually can be partnered together beautifully, and how to use them in that way. So please tune in then. Until that time, I hope that you are well. Thanks so much.